Good morning. It's May the 21st. It's 7 o'clock in the morning and we are off on a messy church adventure. We've got the dog here, so if you hear the clattering of paws, it's just Minnie who is taking part in some of the adventure with us. Now then, if we're going off on an adventure, on a journey, we need lots of stuff. And I have here my suitcase, I've got a rucksack, and I've got a scarf in case it gets cold later on. I've got gloves, because it's May, it's England, it could be a snowstorm later on. I've got my hat, I've got my socks, my big woolly socks, and we'll see if we can get those on ready for the boots. There's one, put those on properly later. Oh, it's just too exciting. When can we leave? I've got my boots, they're all ready to roll. I've got my keys, I've got my house keys, I've got my car keys. I wonder, should I go by car? Should I walk? Should I go by plane from Southampton Airport? Should I go by train from Eastleigh Station? Oh, it's just so many decisions to make. What else have I got? I've got my sun hat in case it's sunny, and I've got my coat because it could be chilly later on. Oh gosh, there's so much packing to do for a holiday. I've got a map of where we're going, and a slightly different sort of map, which we might come on to later. I'll just put that away for the moment. But we're ready to go. But hang on, it's 2020, it's the UK, it's May, we're in lockdown. I can't go anywhere. I can't leave the house. I mean, I could go for a walk locally, but that's not much of an adventure, is it? Off it comes. I mean, we might as well just all give up, mightn't we? Because it's all just so rubbish. We're all stuck at home. We can't go to school, can't go to work, haven't seen my colleagues for weeks, they're all on furlough. What are we going to do? Let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have great fun today because we are going on a messy church adventure around the world. What beats that, eh? We're going all the way around the world up to about 10 o'clock tonight, 9:30, 10 o'clock tonight. And on this YouTube channel, we're going to break out of lockdown and we're going to visit loads of messy churches around the UK. Yes, that'll be fun, but also other parts of the world as well. We're going to Denmark, we're going to South Africa, we're going to Australia, we're going to New Zealand, we're going to America, 6 different states in America, we're going to Canada, we're going to all sorts of different wonderful places, even to the north of Sweden, where we're going to end up tonight. I do hope you can join us on this adventure. I do hope you can stay with us for at least some of the day and maybe dip in and out with all the different things we're doing. Because what we're trying to do is go on an adventure together. Because lots of us in the Messy Church Network think that being a Christian is like being on an adventure with God. In fact, it is being on an adventure with Jesus. And we wanted to show something of that being on an adventure today. You might be thinking, well, why today? Why today? What's special about today? Well, on this day, a long, long time ago, Jesus spoke to his friends, to his disciples, to the apostles, and he gave them a special job to be witnesses all over the world. And we're going to hear that story now told to us by somebody from South Africa. So straight away, we're leaving here for a moment and we're going to find out about today's story from Jonathan in South Africa.
God spreads the gospel, the good news. Jesus stayed with his friends and spoke to them about all the things that had happened to him. He reminded them of the old stories about how the prophets had promised that God would send his Son to help God's dream come true. Jesus said, "Tell everyone, everywhere, that God loves them, and that those who believe in the good news of God's dream should be baptized. And in a few days, you, my friends, will be baptized with the Holy Spirit." He then stretched out his hands and blessed them, saying, "I will be with you always, to the end of time." A cloud came from heaven, and Jesus disappeared. The disciples stared up into the sky looking for him. 2 men in white robes appeared. "Why are you looking up into heaven?" they said. "Jesus is not far away. He will always be close to you, even though you cannot see him. And one day he will return in the same way that he left you." The disciples went home singing praise to God. Let us pray. Dear God, help me to know that Jesus is near. Amen.
Thank you, Jonathan. What a great retelling of the story. Thanks for doing that for us. So today is Ascension Day, and it's the day when Jesus left his friends and his followers on earth, but promised that he'd be back with them in a new and different way. He also gave them a really special job to do, and this job is what we're thinking about today, because Jesus told his followers that they needed to be witnesses for him around the whole world. So today, on Ascension Day, when we remember Jesus going back to be with his dad, we're thinking about being witnesses around the whole messy world. And what we need, first of all, is a passport. This is my old passport. It's been decommissioned now. But the great thing about passports is that you end up with stamps inside them from some of the places you've been, when the customs people can be bothered, is it customs or whoever they are at airports, can be bothered to stamp you. And so I've got some lovely ones here that remind me of trips in the past. Like this one, my trip in 2013 to Australia. I've got a stamp there for that. Imagine going to Australia now. I don't even know if they'd let me in. Or maybe I'd have to spend 2 weeks in quarantine before I got there. Anyway, we're going to make a passport for our messy adventure today so that you can stamp everywhere that you manage to see on this trip, if you'd like to. So, all you need is a piece of paper, a pair of scissors, and a pen. And if you want to get fancy and do all sorts of colouring and beautiful stuff, that's fine. I'm not very artistic. So we're going to make a little passport booklet out of one piece of paper and one cut of the scissors. Very clever. So take your piece of paper, and if you want to, it can be any size. It can be a small one. It can even have stuff on the back. Really doesn't matter. So get your bit of recycled paper. Mine's a little bit crinkly. I think this one's been out in the sunshine or out in the rain or somewhere. Fold it in half, comme ça. Then fold it in quarters like that. So you've got some nice sharp creases along those edges, okay? And then fold it in half again. La 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 la. Yours will be so much neater than mine because you can do it on the table, which is much, much easier. Now, you just open it up until you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 of the squares. Okay, so it's still folded in half, and the fold for me is on this side. Then you take your scissors And on the side where the fold is, here, you just cut along just to the centre. Can you see? Just to that centre point where all the lines meet, all the folds meet. So you have, it goes like that. Yeah? All right. Wonderful. And then you can open it up. Ta-da! And hours of fun can be spent peering through it, putting your nose through it, whistling rude words, whatever you like to do through the gap in the paper there. And this is the clever bit. It looks complicated, but it's actually really easy. You take hold of the folds there at the top, can you see, and you fold it on itself so that it makes this cross shape, which is quite appropriate. And then you crease those creases and just get someone to help you. An extra pair of hands can be handy. And fold it into the shape of a little book or a passport in our case. And can you see? It's really clever, isn't it? You can open up your book and you end up with just the right number of pages for today. And so, when you've got that, take your pen, write passport on the front. Passport. And then on the inside, and I'm going to check with my one that I have made previously that I've got the right countries, you could make a list, put a page for each of the countries that we're going to visit. So I've put mine in alphabetical order. You could do them whatever order you like, of course. I'm starting with Australia. So I'm going to put AUS for Australia. And then we haven't got any starting with B, so I'm going to Canada. And I'm going to put CAN on the next page. So I've got Australia and Canada. Then I'm going to turn over, and this is a double spread, and I'm going to put 4 on here so that we make sure they all fit. I'm going to put DK for Denmark at the top of that page, and NZ for New Zealand. New Zealand. We're going to New Zealand today. What is not to like? I'm going to put SA for, you got it, South Africa, where we've already dropped in. We may be going back in a minute. And SW for Sweden. So there we go. We've got Denmark, New Zealand, South Africa and Sweden. Can you believe this journey we're going on? And then on the final pages, very easy, we're going to put UK and last but not least at all, USA. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. Now, you might be thinking, but I have no stampers at home. I do not have all the wonderful craft stuff that we have at Messy Church. What can I do? All you need is something. It could be mud. It could be Marmite. It could be jam. It could be a felt tip. Because Messy Church people learn to improvise. We get creative with what's at hand. So if you haven't got a decent stamper at home, don't worry. All you need to do is to get your dob of Marmite, which I've got on here already, and your thumb. Then for your passport, like now, you could take your South Africa page, SA, stick your thumb in your Marmite, or indeed your jam if you're sitting there going, ugh, Marmite, that's horrible. But you might be like me and going, I can lick my thumb afterwards. And stamp your passport, because you have been to South Africa with Jonathan already today, and it isn't even 8 o'clock in the morning. What can I say? So there we go, our passport. Oh, and you might be thinking on the back, oh, I could write my name, my personal details, where I'm from, which does remind me that I have been rather rude and I haven't actually explained my personal details, who I am, where I'm from. Well, apart from liking Marmite, my name's Lucy, and I had the privilege and the fun and the joy of being part of the very first team of the very, very first Messy Church, which started not far from here, on the other side of Hampshire, where I live. And I now work for the Bible Reading Fellowship, which is the organisation that looks after messy churches around the world. And I have the best job ever, because I get to meet and to work with the most amazing people. Think of the people who run your messy church. Think of the lovely leaders, the lovely teams, the teenagers who help, the older people who help, the bright sparks who give a hand, all those wonderful creative people. I get to work with those people all day, every day. And this messy adventure is a chance for me to say, look at some of the people who do messy church. Look at these amazing people. Look at the love of God in their eyes. Look at the way that they try to follow Jesus and help other people to know Jesus in their lives too. Because all of this messy church network is about helping people to understand that God loves you to bits. God loves you absolutely without conditions, inside out. There's nothing you can do that would possibly stop him loving you. And today we remember the way that Jesus lived and died and rose again and went back to be with his dad, and then came in a really special way at Pentecost in his Holy Spirit, so that now he can be not just in Hampshire, not just in Macclesfield, not just in York, not just in Australia, not just in New Zealand, but everywhere, all around the world, changing the world to be the sort of place that God longs for it to be the sort of people God longs for us to be. So I hope that this messy adventure today will be a chance to really understand something of the journey that we can go on through life, not just around the world, but our journey with God as well. So we've got our passports ready, we've got our fingers covered in Marmite, and now we can be off, not just to South Africa, we'll be going back there later, but having come back to Hampshire, how about we go and find out what's going on with a messy church in a completely different country? Let's head over to Denmark and find out what Karen Markussen and her team are getting up to with Messy Church for de hele familie in Denmark.
Ja, så kommer der en hilsen fra Danmark her. Vi er her, og der er Messy Church rundt i landet. Men ikke så meget lige nu, hvor alt har været lukket ned. Men ellers så kører vi, og her kan I se nogle af vores dejlige billeder fra forskellige ting rundt omkring. Vi når ikke at tage billeder hele tiden, for vi er så aktive, når vi er i gang med Messy Church. Men prøv at kigge lidt med her. I Danmark, der er der jo også lukket ned, ligesom I har oplevet mange andre steder. Vi oplever, at rigtig mange er sendt hjem. Ligesom Lucy Moore også oplever, at nogle af hendes kollegaer er sendt hjem, så er mange i kirkelig regi også sendt hjem i den her tid. Og så må de bare ikke lave noget, der minder om deres arbejde. Og i Danmark, der er det mange, som driver Messy Church, de er faktisk lønnet af deres kirke eller missionsselskab eller et eller andet. Så derfor så rammer det Messy Church på en særlig måde lige nu. Folk er også helt mentalt lukket ned, oplever vi, og bare nyder den her pause. Så så derfor så har Messy Church også ligget sådan lidt i dvale. Men nu begynder folk at vågne op, og nu vågner de også op for de forslag, vi giver om at holde Messy Church med afstand. Så det er rigtig spændende lige nu. Den her tid har også givet anledning til statskirken og sætte spørgsmålet, hvad er kirke? Eller andre kirkefællesskaber. Snakke om, hvad er kirke? Og i og med, at de åbner for det spørgsmål og tør sætte spørgsmålstegn ved deres egen måde at være kirke på, så øjner vi også en mulighed for, at der bliver en større plads for Messy Church. Det er bare så spændende. Ellers så laver vi jo en masse ting på dansk. Materialer, samlinger, undervisningsvideoer, nye sange. For eksempel kan I høre i baggrunden her lige om lidt vores Messy Church sang. Vi laver science og extreme craft på at omsætte det til dansk sprog og dansk kontekst. Og så arbejder vi med tværkulturelt. Vi har haft mange flygtninge og indvandrere i Danmark, og ser dem til flere af vores messengers. Og det giver nogle udfordringer, når vi ikke kan tale det samme sprog eller forstår den samme kultur. Og de udfordringer har vi prøvet at tage op og lave nogle materialer omkring. Danmark er ved at lukke op nu. Flere og flere ting bliver tilladt. Vi må være mere og mere sammen. Stadigvæk lige pt. 10 sammen, men det kommer også snart til at åbne på flere. Vi skal stadigvæk holde alle de der hygiejneregler og hoste i ærmet og alle de ting. Men under de rammer, hvordan kan vi så lave messengers? Det er rigtig spændende lige nu. Og messengers åbner også op så småt lige nu. Det ser vi rundt omkring, og vi tager udfordringerne op i den tid, vi er i. Til sidst vil jeg bare sige, det er fantastisk, at Gud han er så stor, at han kan både være her hos mig, og han kan være der hos dig, hvor du er. Han kan være alle steder. Gud han er stor. Og må Gud velsigne jer. Det var en hilsen herfra Messengers Danmark. Jeg hedder Karen Markusen og er landskoordinator i Danmark. Hej.
Thank you, Karen. Amazing to see all the stuff that you're getting up to in Denmark. Well, after all that busyness, I think we could do with a bit of a break. How about we sit back after a little trip to Western Australia and have a watch at what Rob Douglas has been doing as he gets his wood-burning pyrography thing out and has a go at the Messy Church logo.
Mess. Here's my hands. One day they could change this land. Reach out and touch and make and shake they can. Here's my heart. It's the most important part because it learns to love and care right from the start. We are here to have some fun. To hold and hug and love someone, to make art and craft and sing our best, because life is better with a little mess. Hear me sing with a voice from deep within. Hear me reading stories of all God can bring. Can you see? I may be small, but I am free. And as I learn from you, you too can learn from me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rob from Western Australia. It's a really interesting theme, isn't it? The idea of journeys. When I was pulling this little book together, What's in the Bible for Me, I took the idea of a journey that started right at the start of things and went all across the Bible and right to the other side. It's a sort of overarching story that carries on all through the Bible and carries on through Jesus's work and through today. Really, really interesting. I think it shows a God who loves journeys and was prepared to make the biggest journey ever from whatever dimension heaven is to come to this very earthly planet, to come out of love for us. But if we go right back to the very beginning, we see human beings in a rather beautiful garden. And so I've gone out into my garden, or I went out earlier and did a bit of filming of the best story, the first story. It's a rhyming version. I hope you enjoy it. And it tells the story of the very beginning. Imagine a time there was nothing at all. No bungalows, houses, no fences, no walls, no gardens outside, no fields, no sun, no Xbox, no Minecraft. This place was no fun. It was all dank and dreary and manky and lonely. All over the surface of earth there was only a shuddering, juddering, muddling muddle of mud. But hovering over that muddle, you guessed, the Spirit of God, like a hen on a nest, watching and waiting in anticipation until they could start their great work of creation. "Let there be light," a mighty voice called. And there in the dark shone the first light of all, like the flick of a match. Then it grew to a blaze and it lit up the world, like the smile lit God's face. God gently divided the dark from the light, called the one day and the other one night. And there was evening and there was morning, the first day. On day 2, the Lord was well in his stride. "Now, let's have a glorious sky," the Lord cried. "We'll make it a paint pot of every colour to stretch high and wide. It would be far duller to have only earth." Sky appeared with no trouble, protecting the world like a beautiful bubble. And there was evening and there was morning, the second day. On day 3, the Lord rolled his jeans up and said, "This earth is too soggy and boggy. Instead, we need somewhere to walk where we won't get wet feet. Now, you waters, roll back, please." Aha, this is quite neat. We'll have something called land and something called sea. On the something called land will grow something called tree. And God got excited. Instead of one tree, he pictured the land how he'd like it to be, and he made the land grow plants of all shapes and sizes, from poplars to peonies, date palms to daisies, Canadian redwoods and spinach and swede, toadstools, tamarinds, sponges, seaweed, rainforest, cactuses, calm English woodland. God grinned when he saw it and said, "Oh, that's good." And there was evening and there was morning, the third day. On day 4, the Lord said, "What we need now are some lights in the heavens above." Oh, yes, wow, we'll use them to mark out the days and the seasons and months and the years. There are plenty of reasons for setting a place for the moon and the sun and throwing in stars. Yes, this is great fun. And there was evening and there was morning, the 4th day. On day 5, the Lord had the great notion of filling with life every lake, sea and ocean. We'll have big fish and small fish and fat ones and skinny. We'll make the seas teem with things floppy and finny. And we'll have birds too, all diving and soaring and hovering, gliding. Let nothing be boring. And look, there were guppies and clownfish and whales, ferocious sea monsters with sharp teeth and scales, penguins with short, emus with long legs. God sent them all off to lay hundreds of eggs. "It's good, it's so good," the birds heard God say. And there was evening and there was morning, the 5th day. On day 6, the Lord went completely to town. "Let's have lots of animals in yellow, black, brown. We'll have a great range of things, fluffy and hairy, some cute and cuddly, some sleek and scary. We will have reptiles, amphibians, mammals. We will have crocodiles, koalas, camels, terrapins, tree frogs, tyrannosaurus, pandas, pigs, porcupines. It will be glorious. But better than that, said the Lord tenderly, will be someone I make who's something like me. This world I've made, it needs looking after, needs gardening, farming, filling with laughter. And so for the world here, my masterpiece will be women and men who will rule birds and beasts and the flowers and plants and the trees and the fishes, and they will treasure each unique species. I hope they enjoy it. I hope they discover that God, earth and people were made for each other. So God made the man and the woman and blessed them, then put his feet up for a good day of rest. If you knew that the earth had been given to you as a present to treasure, what might you do? So there they were in that beautiful, beautiful garden, that present that they'd been given. And the story carries on in Genesis 3 that actually the man and the woman made some bad choices and ended up being shut out of that beautiful place, that place where they could just be and stay. And once they were shut out, then the journey began for them. And the Bible tells the story of God's people journeying and journeying with that yearning inside them to have that closeness with God, to come back to that closeness that they had in the garden when they were just so close, so intimate, when there was nothing that got in the way between them and God. And it's a journey for human beings to try to find their way back to that state. And there was only one way that they were going to get back to that closeness with God. And I think you probably know his name, the way that happened, the person whose name means God with us, God's rescuer. But journeys happen in all sorts of ways. Journeys trying to find your way to somewhere. And let's pop back now to South Africa, and where Jean is going to tell us a rather amazing adventure story.
Greetings from South Africa. Warm greetings from South Africa. Our story today is based on a true story of a hippopotamus, a wandering hippopotamus about 93 years ago. And the story starts in a place called Lake St. Lucia, which is in northern Zululand. It's part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There are coral reefs, warm Indian Ocean sea, sandy beaches, Pyrus and Reed wetland to the north, and savanna and grassland to the west of the lake. The lake is about 80 kilometers in length and 23 kilometers wide at its widest point, and it's home to a multitude of different saltwater and freshwater species. So we've got two-legged creatures, four-legged creatures, six-legged creatures, eight-legged creatures, multiple-legged creatures, and no-legged at all creatures, all living together in this amazing ecosystem. About 93 years ago, Huberta was born to her mum and dad. She was a cute little, well, about the size of a sheep, a very plump sheep. And she was grey, black in colour. She had tiny little pink ears and tiny little eyes perched on top of her head. She was quite well rounded, and a little tail. And she was really cute, but ugly cute. And yeah, her mum thought she was beautiful, as all mums do. And her mum took her and taught her all the things she needed to know to be able to grow up to be a big hippo. So she taught her what food to eat all your greens, that's important, and swimming and holding your breath underwater are also important things to know. So Huberta's mum taught her those things too. One of the other little habits that Huberta picked up from her mum was that when she woke up in the morning, she'd turn and face south, so that as the sun rose in the east, the left side of her flank was warmed by the sun. And once the dew had dried off her hide, she was ready then to go into the water for her first swim of the day. And Huberta and her mum and dad and the other hippo families who lived in the lake all used to spend a lot of time in the water, away from, staying cool from the hot African sun. Now, a lot of people lived around the lake, a lot of local Zulu people, and they were fishermen. That's how they earned their livelihood. They fished from the lake and they ate what they'd caught. And it was a nice communal relationship. Sometimes the hippos went and ate all the vegetables that the fishermen were growing, and sometimes the fishermen got too close to where the baby hippos were playing, and so the mums got up and made a loud noise and roared at them, and they left them. But generally, it was a good relationship between the fishermen and the hippos, and they had a healthy respect for each other. Now, Huberta's dad had a bit of a sense of humour, a streak of a sense of humour, and one day he saw some fishing boats, long wooden canoes, out in the middle of the lake, and he decided that he'd show off to his friends. So he said to them, "Watch this." He submerged so that he was completely under the water, and he swam towards the canoe, and then when he got under it, he popped his head up. The canoe went flying out of the water, turned over, the fishermen went into the water, and they had to swim to shore, and it was a long and exhausting swim. And when they got to shore, they were a bit shaken by all of this, so they went to tell the village chief what had happened, and that was that. But the next morning, the problem was that the hippos didn't realize that it wasn't such a funny joke, so they thought they'd try it again. This time there were 3 canoes in the middle of the lake, which the various hippos went under and flipped over, and one of the fishermen didn't make it back to shore, and so that night the fishermen went to speak with the chief, and they decided that they'd have to do something to get rid of the hippos, because this just wasn't going to work out. And so the next morning there was a bit of a scuffle. The warriors came to try and get rid of the hippos. Hippo families scattered. When hippos sense danger, they go into the water, so it was just a mass crazy hippos, kind of nervous, frightened, scared. Families were split, some hippos died, and Huberta ended up in a bunch of reeds, very, very nervous. She was disorientated, she was alone, she felt sad, and she didn't know what had happened to her family. She looked across the lake and saw some fires burning, some villagers shouting or singing and dancing, and she thought that this place was now very dangerous and she couldn't stay there anymore. So the next morning, as the sun rose, she stood so that her left flank caught the sun, and she was headed south, and she started to walk. She walked and walked and walked till she got to the Tugela River. And at the Tugela River, she enjoyed playing in the ponds, in the pools of water there, swimming in the river, floating, submerging, chewing on the nice reeds on the edge of the riverbank. And she missed her mum and her dad. And so then Huberta decided it was time to leave the Tugela River. So she headed on her journey south. And about 200 kilometers from Lake St. Lucia, she ended at a place called Stanger. There were lots of cane fields, sugar cane fields in the area. and one day she was having her greens like her mum had taught her in the sugarcane fields, and a farmer spotted her, and he was most surprised, so he phoned the newspapers that were based in Durban, and news got out and everyone rushed to see this strange sight, this hippopotamus in the sugarcane fields. There hadn't been a hippopotamus there for 200 years. And all the neighbours came, and all the people from the nearby area came to see what was going on. As Huberta was standing there munching, she saw these crowds of people gathering, and she started to get a bit skittish. There was a bit of a flashback to what had happened in back at Lake St. Lucia when there'd been lots of people around, and so she mock charged them, and people scattered. They ran. About 12 people went up the nearest tree. There was only one tree in the area, and other people jumped into a pond, and they didn't realize that hippos, when they feel like they're in danger, they head for water. So as quickly as they jumped in the pond, Huberta followed them and they jumped out. But Huberta then went on and grazed on some sugarcane on a neighbouring field. When she got to Tongaat, she came to quite a modest home of a local trading store owner. There was a house made out of mud bricks, reeds, and one evening they were sitting down for their meal of curry and rice, and they heard some munching noises outside. Weren't sure what that was about, and then there was they saw the side wall of their house began to cave inwards, and they got a bit concerned. But before very long, there was a hole in the wall, and the face in the hole of the wall was that of Huberta the hippo. They thought she'd come to join them for a supper of curry and rice. So they ran out the front door and left the curry and rice for Huberta, but they soon realized that she'd eaten all their vegetables already, so she wasn't actually hungry for the curry and rice. Then Huberta wandered on down south towards Durban, and she got to a golf course. One morning, there was, story goes that there was a golfer ready to tee off at the third hole, and he noticed this big kind of presence, because that's really what it is, in the bush just next to him. And so he got a fright. He called to his friends, called to the friend he was playing with, and just, how many drinks did we have today? And the friend said, I've had 2 whiskeys and you've had 2 beers. And the golfer said, well, I think I've just seen a hippo. And the friend said, yes, that's definitely a hippo. It must be Huberta, the hippo that's been, that we last saw in Stanger. So let's go back to the clubhouse. We don't want to be out here with this wild and dangerous creature. Let's go back to the clubhouse and have a few drinks, and then and we'll call the police. And so they did that, and then 2 policemen came on, mounted on horseback, and they managed to get Huberta off the fairway and into another clump of bushes. And as they were working out what to do with her, the horses realized, well, they hadn't seen this sort of creature before, and they realized it was wild and dangerous. So they got a bit skittish, and Huberta got a bit skittish as well. And then Huberta mock charged them out of the bush. The horses reared. The one policeman had to hang on to his horse for dear life. The other policeman fell off his horse. But luckily for him, Huberta was more interested in his helmet that had fallen off than in the policeman himself. But at that stage, Huberta was becoming quite a spectacle in the Durban area. And on the 1st of April 1929, she was wandering in the streets of Durban. It was a chilly morning, and pre-dawn chill. She was wandering down the main streets of Durban, and a newspaper seller was on his way to work. and he noticed, he saw the sight of this hippopotamus, and at first he thought it was an April Fool's joke. He just couldn't believe it, so he fell off his bicycle and ran down a side street, and news spread everywhere. Huberta was at that stage a South African, almost a national pet for the country. Everyone was following her adventures. But now, once she was in the streets of Durban, she became international news. So stories of her were in newspapers in England, in the United States of America, in France, in Germany, and she was well loved. She caused such havoc with the traffic that day in the main streets of Durban. The police had to come and help cordon off streets, and they were able to move her to an area just outside Pinetown where she spent some time in more rural surrounds, not infringing the rules of the road and that sort of thing. But people realized that something needed to be done, because it wasn't safe for her to be among the humans, and it wasn't safe for the humans to be among her. And so the Johannesburg Zoo thought it would be a good idea to come in and capture her and keep her in their zoo, so people she could be safe and people could come and see her. So they made a plan. They made a big wooden crate, put it on the back of a truck, and traveled probably a couple of days, because the roads were very slow in those days. A couple of days to get to Durban. When they got to Durban, they asked the locals where she'd last been seen, and they'd last seen her in Umhlanga Lagoon. So they went to Umhlanga Lagoon, and sure enough, there she was on the edge of the bank. And when she saw the people starting to gather, she got a little bit suspicious. She looked around with her little suspicious eyes, and quickly went into the water, slipped into the water, and swam to a lagoon, to an island in the middle of the lagoon. And there she waited. The people from the zoo obviously couldn't do anything with their big net that they'd come to capture her with, and so they had to organize a motorboat. They found someone to get the boat, to go to the island and to catch Huberta. But Huberta wasn't having anything of this. As they got in the boat, she slipped into the water again, so just her eyes could be seen above the surface of the water, and she watched and waited. And they had their binoculars, and they were looking for her, looking to see where she was on the island. Huberta had a bit of a flashback to the game her dad used to play, the Whoops-a-Daisy game that her dad used to play with boats on the water. And all of a sudden she got it into herself that this was a good game to play. So as the boat came off towards the island in the lagoon, so she submerged, went under the boat, and then came up out of the water, right under the boat. The boat lurched, the propeller was still spinning, the people from the zoo fell out into the water, and they were so frightened, because they didn't know where Huberta had gone. They hung onto the boat for dear life, and that's how Huberta didn't get caught. So that mission was abandoned, and they decided to leave Huberta, let her just be peaceful. And she was a bit of a law unto herself. She used to go around, she'd be most active at night time when it was cool. During the daytime she'd find somewhere cool to lie or water to wallow in. She just took it easy during the day. Evenings and early mornings was when she used to forage and find, or the main times when she foraged and found food. But she used to wander up and down the river valleys, and in the morning she still used to, when the sun rose in the east, she would turn to face south so that her left side of her body got all nice and warm, and then she'd walk. And she kind of avoided Durban and went round. Then Huberta walked on and ended up in the Umkomaas Valley, and chose that valley and went down, followed that valley down to where the river, Umkomaas River, enters the sea. And the hotel owners at that point in southern KwaZulu-Natal, the south coast of KwaZulu-Natal, were quite excited because having a hippo in these areas meant there was more interest in people staying in their hotels, because Huberta being in the area was a novelty and a draw card for them. So Huberta went onto the beach near the Nkomas Valley, and she wandered down the beach, stopping at rivers where there was nice places to swim, grazing along the way, and then carrying on. Then the day came when Huberta decided she needed to continue on her journey. She walked some more, and eventually she came to the Mtamvuma River. And there, at that point, she crossed over into the Transkei. And Transkei is where the Xhosa people lived, and they hadn't seen a hippopotamus for 100 years. So the people that were alive didn't know what it was that was in the area now. So the first people who encountered her ran off back to tell the chief, look what we found, this huge big thing. And they used wild hand gestures to try and describe her, and probably exaggerated a bit. And the chief was a bit astounded, didn't know what to do. So he said, let's go and consult with the wise old witch doctor. So they went, and the hunters told the witch doctor what they'd encountered, and the witch doctor listened very carefully to what he was being told, and then decided, or then stood, thought a long while, then stood up and said that this monster that they described is actually a sacred beast. So as Huberta went on through the Transkei, she couldn't believe it. All of a sudden, whenever she came across people, they'd either run away or they'd fall down on their knees. And this for her was very strange. She came to a river called Mzimvubu, which literally means home of the hippo. Now, 100 years ago, there would have been hundreds of hippos there. And it was a lovely place, lots of pools, lots of nice grass to eat, places to dive and swim, places to sit out and sun. And Huberta spent a number of months there in the Mzimvubu River. But then, she decided it was time to move on. So she carried on her journey. She crossed over the Great Kai River, and eventually ended up in just outside East London. There she stayed in the Nahoon Lagoon for a little while. There was talk of the people from the Bloemfontein Zoo who wanted to come and give a chance or capture her so that she could be staying safe in the Bloemfontein Zoo, but no one was prepared to help the people from the Bloemfontein Zoo catch her, because she'd been considered sacred by the Xhosa people. Huberta then moved on further south. No one knew why she was moving on. What was it that made her go south all the time? But she moved on, and she came to the Kaiskama River, which is another beautiful place, a lovely river where hippos used to gather 100 years ago. Lots of pools to swim in, and the weaver birds and the red bishop birds in the reeds were welcoming her. The sun was setting, and she was having a great time there. She thought this is a nice place to call home. And she spent a bit of time there, wandering up and down the river valley, as she had done at many of the other rivers. And she, the one evening, just before she was going to bed, with two little eyes that peeped through some reeds and saw this creature. And this little farm boy who'd spotted her didn't know what to do, so he ran back to tell his dad what he'd seen. His dad was gobsmacked, I suppose. Called his two farmer friends, and then the next morning they were waiting with guns. So as Huberta got up and stood to warm herself up in the sun, they shot her. She ran back into the water, where she died. And some fishermen found her floating down the river the next day or so. And when news broke out of Huberta's death, everyone was very sad, very, very sad. She'd been a national pet to many South Africans, and they thoroughly enjoyed watching her every adventure as it was reported in the newspapers. Overseas, people were sad as well. The news of Huberta had brought relief to them in their mundane politics of the day, the worries about the financial situation, and the stories of war. So Huberta had brought a lot of joy to people in her short life. And so that's the end of our Huberta story. She travelled over 1,600 kilometres, crossed over 120 rivers, some of them needed swimming across, and she'd made a lot of people very happy in the process. She'd created a lot of interest, and she had done what she needed to do. And so in closing, I'd like to leave you with 2 questions. The first is, I wonder where your journey begins and where it is taking you. And the second question, I wonder what impact you are going to have on the world around you. Thank you.
Minnie's decided she wanted to join me. Thank you, Jean, for that fantastic story. What an amazing adventure hippos can have. Who knew? Well, I think we need to pause after all that for a little prayer. I've found a few travellers' prayers, and I thought it might be quite nice if you saw a little bit of where I live. And so there's a prayer here that's got one of our local rivers in the background. It's the River Itchen. So while this traveller's prayer is going on, perhaps you could just enjoy a little bit about the river that goes through our village.
A pilgrim prayer from the Camino de Santiago. O God, you brought your servant Abraham out of the land of the Chaldeans, protecting him in his wanderings, who guided the Hebrew people across the desert. We ask that you watch over us, your servants, as we walk in the love of your name. Be for us our companion on the walk, our guide at the crossroads. Be our breath in our weariness, our protection in danger, our inn on the road, our shade in the heat, our light in the darkness, our consolation in our discouragements, and our strength in our intentions, so that with your guidance we may arrive safe and sound at the end of the road, and enriched with grace and virtue we return safely to our homes filled with joy. In the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
There are all sorts of journeys, aren't there? There's the journey that where you go from A to B, where you go from one place to another, and there's the sort of journey that we're on today, a journey where you don't actually go anywhere, but you do go a long way in your imagination, and perhaps you change from the start of the journey to the end of the journey, who knows. And some people describe following Jesus as like being on a journey as well. And we've been thinking a lot about following Jesus, or some people call it discipleship, but it's basically just trying to live life with Jesus there, following him, trying to
hear what he's saying to us and live life in the way that he wants us to live. And as we've been thinking about that, we've been trying to use the idea of going on a journey to see whether we can imagine the Christian life as a sort of adventure, as perhaps a voyage of discovery. So here we go. We've got a boat. It's not a brilliant boat, but there we go. It's ours. And I wonder what sort of boat or ship that might be. I wonder, it had better not be a cruise ship at the moment, I don't think, but maybe it could be like a scientific discovery vessel, like the David Attenborough, sailing off to discover exciting things about the planet. Or maybe it's like a coracle, you know, those little boats made out of very simple leather that the early saints set off and just went with the tides and followed God, seeing where they would end up. Perhaps it's one of those that just follows the tides, follows the winds. Maybe it's a pirate ship in search of treasure. Who knows? Who knows? Have a look at this map with me. So here's a map of some islands that we could be sailing to in our little adventure ship. Let's have a closer look, shall we? Obviously, people have been here before, they've visited these islands before, or there wouldn't actually be a map of them. But let's see what you can read on this map. Look at these rather odd islands. Growing the church, a worship island, making life better for others, there's justice, there's togetherness, there's prayer and family. There's the island of caring for the earth, of Bible stories, one for generosity, one for meals, one for play, a rather dodgy sea monster there, one that hasn't even got a name, so perhaps there are still things to discover. Maybe you're the one to discover them. And I don't know if you noticed this one, the COVID-19 island. What on earth could that have to do with a journey with Jesus? Well, I wonder what it would be like to sail around these islands. I wonder which of these islands you've landed on already. If you're part of a messy church, I expect you've spent quite a long time on the family island, on the prayer island, the meals and the play. Maybe others as well, worship. Perhaps your messy church is doing a lot about justice and making life better for others. I wonder which island you think sounds the most interesting. I wonder which you think sounds the most puzzling. Why? I wonder why there's an X on some of these islands. What might that mean? I wonder, would it make any difference if we visited these islands on our own, or if we visited them with other people? I wonder if there are any islands we don't want to go anywhere near. I wonder which of these islands we'd be keen to explore
wonder if it costs more to visit some islands than others. I wonder what this map is really all about. I wonder if there's anything you'd like to say or write down or pray about. Well, here's our ship. Let's put that. Ooh, let's put it over the hole there. There we go. There's our ship ready to sail on the islands, and I'm going to put a little person in. There we go. There's me. I'm going to say I'm on board for this journey. I'll get in. I'll be going on this journey. Ooh, don't know which islands we'll visit yet, but I'll give it a go. And I think I should probably have put this person in first, because you're never alone on this journey. Jesus is with you every step of the way. And we'll be hearing about some of his stories travelling in boats in the course of today. And I'm going to put just a third person in as well, because I think that going on journeys together is a great thing to do. So I'm going to put that extra person in to remind me of you, of my friends in the Messy Church network, of my friends in my local church, of my family, of all the people God's blessed me with to go on my life's journeys together. So, shall we pray? Loving God, thank you for this adventure that is life. Thank you for all the ways that we can get to know you better, where we can find the treasure of knowing you and living life your way. Help us to explore life together. Help every day, everywhere we go, everywhere we stay, to be an adventure with you. Thank you, loving God, that you're with us every inch of the way. In Jesus' name, amen. And now, perhaps it would be appropriate to have a pirate's prayer.
Disturb us, Lord, when we are too well pleased with ourselves, when our dreams have come true because we have dreamt too little, when we arrived safely because we sailed too close to the shore. Disturb us, Lord, when with the abundance of things we possess we have lost our thirst for the waters of life. Having fallen in love with life, we have ceased to dream of eternity, and in our efforts to build a new earth, we have allowed our vision of the new heaven to dim. Disturb us, Lord, to dare more boldly, to venture on wider seas, where storms will show your mastery, where, losing sight of land, we shall find the stars. We ask you to push back the horizons of our hopes and to push into the future in strength, courage, hope and love. Amen.
I hope you enjoyed that. Well, time is getting on. We've got an awful lot of travelling to do today, and it might be quite nice to finish off our time in this first hour of the day, the first hour of Ascension Day, with a farewell song, a song from South Africa again that sends us off on our journeys. And you'll even see Jean's dog in this photo, who is a very beautiful dog. So here's a song to send us on our way from South Africa.
We're going on a trip. 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 We're going on a trip.
Go well and safely. Go well and safely. Go well and safely. The Lord be ever with gatle, hambani gatle, hambani gatle, ngosi mai benani. Go well and safely, go well and safely, go well and safely. The Lord be ever with you. Hambani gatle, hambani gatle, hambani gatle, ngosi mai benani. Go well and safely, go well and safely, go well and safely. The Lord be ever with you.
Wow, thank you. I think I'll be singing that song for the rest of today. Fantastic. Well, our time in Hampshire has nearly come to an end. We haven't done badly for an hour, have we? We've been in Hampshire, we've been to South Africa, we've been to Denmark and Australia. So I think that's pretty good going for the first 60 minutes or so. Where are we going next? Well, we are going to hand on to a part of the world where, although it's 8 o'clock roundabout in the morning for us in the UK, it certainly isn't 8 o'clock in the morning for them. We're going over to New Zealand in just a moment. If you've enjoyed any of the parts of the video, any of the day at all, please leave a comment. It would be lovely to hear from you. There's a Google form on the YouTube channel, so just click on the button there and fill it in. And if you can send us any photos of yourselves watching or joining in or making things, please do send us those photos to the messychurch.org.uk website. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Have a wonderful adventure today. I'll be going on it with you, and I shall be coming back right at the end to say thank you to everybody who's taken part. But thank you to you for joining in so far, and have a wonderful adventure with Messy Church and adventure with Jesus.
Go well and safely, go well and safely, go well and safely.